Greetings fellow mammals. They buffed the LMR's damage model and then they introduced its brother, the GRT-CPS, with an even worse rate of fire. What this means for DMR users, my loadouts and the rankings? Well, let's see. The damage buff in itself doesn't really change anything about the base performance. 28.6 out of 21 meters, 27.3 out of 75 meters and then 25 beyond is still just a regular old 4-shot BTK. The actual effect these changes have will become apparent in the headshot section in a second. But before we get there, one last note. The LMR still has a 400 millisecond time to kill, which remains to be pretty shitty, unless of course you extend those ranges. The GRT however has dethroned the EMR now. With its 360 rounds per minute and the same damage model, we get a blistering half a second time to kill. This is now officially the slowest killing gun in the game. Hooray! But now let's take a look at those headshots I mentioned. I have some bad news, some good news, more good news, and a bit of news. Let's start with the good. Regular headshots actually do something now with just 2 hits, and with 3 the improvement becomes consistent. Still not great, but hey, small steps. Now the bad news. Hollow point ammo has become pretty much useless. Yes, you do get that small drop for the first range with just 1 headshot, and you also get a consistent drop with 2 instead of 3, but realistically speaking, that 21 meter range should be avoided, and even if you do land that 1 headshot, it won't help you enough to win against full auto weapons anyway. And as we saw just now, that 2-hit drop can already be achieved for 75 meters with just the default headshots. So from my point of view, hollow point ammo has lost its entire Daseinsberechtigung. Thankfully, and that's the second good news, synthetic tip ammo has become a lot better. Just 1 headshot grants you the 75 meter drop, which is very useful. And with 2 you could potentially 2-shot someone in the first range. Probably still very unlikely to happen, but many times people are on low health anyway, and just being able to dish out 50 damage in 1 shot might be enough sometimes. So what's the news then? Well, that results from the conclusion of this chapter. Basic headshots have become not completely useless, which is nice and could free up some points for the loadouts. Hollow point ammo has become basically useless, which I guess is not nice, but it will also free up some points for my loadouts. And synthetic tip ammo has become really useful, which is nice, but also a problem because it costs a shit ton of points. And if you remember, we didn't necessarily have a lot of those on the LMR. So what did I do to get around this issue? Well, first off, it is important to note that the 1 headshot reduction with synthetic tip is just way too good to not use it. Obviously, this creates a massive budget issue on the LMR. With its teeny tiny magazines and god-awful reload speed, you really have to manage your resources here. Personally, I have settled with this. Basic suppressor, extended barrel, no grip, 15 round fast mag to fix both of the major issues, at least somewhat, synthetic tip ammo, and a BF2M sight. This is not my ideal vision for this gun, but it works surprisingly well. No grip and no recoil suppressor is definitely noticeable in comparison, but it's no deal breaker. You can still spam this thing rather reliably. Hitting 1 headshot in each encounter is also very easy if you consciously go for that, and the reward is right there, turning a subpar 400 millisecond time to kill into a 267 millisecond time to kill. That's quite respectable, and especially considering that you get that for 75 meters. If you think you can manage without a suppressor entirely, you can also just go for the flash hider and then add the folding vertical grip. This certainly feels a bit better to spam, but well, it's giving away your precision more, so pick what you prefer. This setup embraces the base performance. Full spam, no prisoners. Long sub because sway doesn't matter when you're going for body shots, extended barrel, folding stubby for recoil and ADS speed, 15 round fast mag, basic ammo and a BF2M of course. If you really want to make sure you'll need to swallow painkillers for your hands when you're 50, then this is the perfect setup for you. It works pretty well and sometimes you do land those 2 headshots, so occasionally you will even profit from a TTK drop here. For the rest of the time, it's a pretty mediocre experience though. I'm not sure if this thing has less recoil than the LMR, it might actually be more to be honest, but it is certainly straighter, which at least feels more comfortable. And because the time to kill is the utter trash that it is, you can only really comfortably engage enemies at 50 meters plus. Even hitting that 1 headshot doesn't really save you in the first 35 meters. And for that reason, I use a 4.5x scope on this thing. Combined with a long sub and a folding vertical grip, that works out really well. And then to top it off, I add the extended barrel, the fast mag, and of course synthetic tip ammo. ammo. You can remove the grip and the fast mag if you want a thermal sight, still works good enough, and you might be concerned about the sway, and I get that, but once you start shooting it stops anyway. And to be honest, if you would use the lightened sub, you either don't have a fast mag or no grip and 5 leftover points for nothing. It's a bit annoying. A 25 round magazine option for 15 points would have been nice, but it is what it is. This is a bit wild and probably not for everybody. Long sub, extended barrel, 20-point grip pod, fast mag, basic ammo and a 6x thermal. As you can tell, this favors a more, let's be nice and call it, passive playstyle. I'm not encouraging anyone to wander into these realms of gameplay, but if you have already set up your camp there anyway, then this is what I will recommend to you. I myself will never touch this again though. And that brings us to the tier list. Quick recap. The LMR currently resides in C tier. Since I placed it there, it has received a damage buff, a recoil buff and a fix for the fast magazines. So overall, my major pain points were addressed, at least somewhat. I still think the reload is too slow and the 15 round mag should be the base one and the bigger one should be cheaper all around, but hey, necessary changes were made nonetheless. And being able to use a, granted very barebone, setup that turns hitting one headshot into a significant outcome is pretty nice. I don't think we have reached the final destination of this weapon just yet, but we are certainly closing in on it. So in my eyes, a slight shift from C tier up into B- is justified. And now the GRT. This weapon was very clearly not made for me, and when I imagine the players the developers had in mind while designing this, I think those people would really love this thing. But I'm here to represent a broad midfield of players with a slight lean towards the top end, and for us folks, I cannot say that this is an addition that's even worth addressing. Me personally, I hate it even more than the EMR, but neutrally speaking, it works. Easy recoil, big attachment buffet, nice magazine size, but the time to kill, it's just... Now, where do I place this? I think D tier sounds about right. For the lower mid-range, I'd rather use the LMR. For the overall mid-range, I'd rather use the SVDM. And for the long range, I'd rather use the SVK. But ultimately, I think the GRT will still be more comfortable to use for most people than the M39. So D tier it is. And to put a final touch on that ranking, I will readjust the SVDM and EMR as well. After all, every weapon has benefited from the recent recoil changes. And yes, technically the SVK did too, but on that thing you really don't notice it at all, so that will just stay where it is. The M39 and SVDM, however, will both move up a small step, just because you can spam them better now, if only just ever so slightly. So the EMR rises from E tier into E+, and the SVDM from D+ into C-. Closing thoughts on today's topic. Disregarding the end result, both of these weapons can only achieve their full potential with synthetic tip ammo. And because that attachment is usually one of the last ones you unlock, and the grind being the absolute abysmal Herculean task that it is, you will basically have to suffer through 39 levels of absolute mediocrity, if not worse, before you can even get a taste of this improvement. I know they've recently stated that they are working on making the unlock experience less frustrating, whatever that means exactly. Maybe we can pay for attachments in the future, it's EA after all, but until that happens, the unlock grind remains to be extremely annoying. So if you are currently contemplating leveling either one of these, just don't. Wait until they change it and use weapons that are actually fun from the start in the meantime. And with that, that's it for today. Like, share and subscribe, thank you for your time, and I will see you on the battlefield. Sorrow out.